Hello and welcome to Soda Tasting, an online show dedicated to soda reviews and appreciation. I'm Patrick O'Keefe. On today's episode, I'm going to do a blind tasting. This is a Pepsi blind tasting. And what we're going to do is a little different. We're not comparing different brands of sodas against one another. We're comparing three different versions of Pepsi. Now, one version is the mainstream version in the US, which is sweetened with high fructose corn syrup and sugar. Pepsi is probably one of the few brands of soda that you'll find in pretty much any grocery store that is sweetened with sugar. Of course, it is with high fructose corn syrup, which is higher up on the ingredient list, but they do still use sugar. We're going to be comparing that to Mexican Pepsi, which is sweetened just with sugar. And we're going to be comparing those to something that I just recently discovered, and I was surprised that it existed. It's Pepsi with sugar, made here in the United States. I was walking the aisles of a Lowe's Foods grocery store, and I checked the soda aisle out, right? And was just looking around, and by chance, I looked down another aisle, and I say, hey, what is that over there? That looks like Pepsi in a glass bottle. It must just be high fructose corn syrup and sugar Pepsi, you know, because Coke produces glass bottle Pepsi glass bottle Coke in the U.S., and, you know, theirs is high fructose corn syrup. So it's just probably the same thing, just in a glass bottle. So I go take a look, and sure enough, it is just with sugar, and it's produced in the U.S., not Mexico. So that was kind of surprising. I was like, why haven't I seen this anywhere else before? So that's Pepsi with sugar, Mexican Pepsi, and then just Pepsi, and we're going to be comparing those three. Now, Pepsi was invented in my home state of North Carolina. It was invented in New Bern, North Carolina, originally as Brad's drink, before becoming Pepsi shortly thereafter. And as I mentioned, in the U.S., it's made with a mix of high fructose corn syrup and sugar. High fructose corn syrup is the second ingredient on the list, and sugar is fourth. And there are 5, 6, 7, 8 ingredients listed. And calorie count-wise, they're all the same, 150 calories. Caffeine's the same, 38 milligrams. The only difference is the sweeteners, which again, high fructose corn syrup and sugar, sugar, and sugar. I bought the Mexican Pepsi at the Fresh Market, which is a grocery store chain. And I think that's everything. So let's go ahead and see what we have here. First of all, carbonation-wise, you know, 2 and 3 look pretty similar. 2 looks like it has a little bit more, but both have a fair amount of carbonation. 1 has carbonation certainly around here, but less carbonation than the others, I would say. Before I get into my thoughts, I should, of course, remind you that this is a blind tasting again, and I don't know what's in any of these cups. My brother Trent was kind enough to put together this blind tasting for me, and he poured everything and put the results into this envelope. I do not know what is in these cups. Now, you can see looking at it, 2 is the highest, because 2 was just easy to eliminate. The taste of 2 is almost like a different kind of cola. It's like a tangy cola. It's just not... There's something different about it. I don't know. Yeah, it's more of a tangier cola. Not a fan of 2. So 2 is easiest to put as my third place here. 1 and 3, that's where the tough comparison was. You know, not... There's differences there. There's subtle differences. I would say 1 is a little... maybe a tiny bit smoother, where 3 is a tiny bit more... Has a tiny bit more... oomph to it, a tiny more bite to it, a little more maybe citrus note to it. And you know, these all have the same ingredients except for the sweetener. For instance, Pepsi has carbonated water, high fructose corn syrup, caramel color, sugar, phosphoric acid, caffeine, citric acid, natural flavor. They all have that same mix. It's just the sweeteners are what is different. So, you know, very similar ingredients, 1 and 3. You know, it's tough. They're both at the top for me, so just picking one is like, you know, trying to find just a very small difference that pushes me over the top. But I will say, I think I lean towards 3 just barely, because I like the balance of the sweetness, which is good, and then a little bit of that bite. Where 1 has just decent sweetness, good sweetness, smooth, or a little smoother. But I think I want to go with 3 here. I kind of like the way they balance the flavors on 3. where one just doesn't have any kind of bite whatsoever, and I like a little bit of bite in the cola. So my ranking is going to be 3, 1, and 2, and I'll go ahead and reorder those cups, just so you know what my rating is. So again, 3, 1, 2, and let's see what these are. And I will say I've never had Mexican Pepsi before. I've never had Pepsi with sugar before either, non-Mexican Pepsi. Alrighty. Number 1 was Pepsi with sugar. Number 2 was Mexican Pepsi. And number 3 was Pepsi. So, my first place was regular mainstream Pepsi with high fructose corn syrup and sugar. My number 2 was Pepsi with sugar, made in the U.S. And my number 3 was Mexican Pepsi. Mexican Pepsi just kind of had that, I don't know, it was like a different kind of thing. I really liked the Pepsi with sugar from the U.S. here. I really liked the way that tastes. Again, it could have won this blind tasting. It really was just kind of, just a little bit, the seesaw just kind of teetered a little bit toward the mainstream Pepsi based on a little bit of bite that it has. But if you don't like bite in your cola, then you might just like Pepsi with sugar. This is, again, just my taste. So the winner just barely is the mainstream Pepsi. But really, the Pepsi with sugar and the mainstream Pepsi, both sodas that I would personally choose to drink myself, both good sodas. Mexican Pepsi I probably wouldn't have again, just based on my taste. Not a huge fan of that flavor. I don't know why it's different, so different from the Pepsi with sugar made in the U.S. I couldn't tell you why, but yeah, that's my feeling here. And I would like to know, have you seen this? Have you seen this Pepsi with sugar made in the U.S.? Let me know where you've seen it, because I'd like to know, and I'm sure maybe some other viewers of Soda Tasting would like to know where you've seen it. Leave me a comment on YouTube or on sodatasting.com. If you're on Facebook, find us at facebook.com/sodatasting. Thank you for watching, and as always, everything in moderation.